Hey, it's news from heaven. Without love, we die. Is that literal, or is that like a poem or a thought I'm supposed to weigh on? That sounds pretty drastic. I mean, sure, love is important. People talk about love, but how are you going to say without love we die? And I have a question for you too. Which are you talking about? Without us loving things, or without us receiving love, or is it both? When we're navigating the day-to-day consciousness, it seems like a lot of time for me, and I think people have different struggles with different stuff. This isn't the main thing for everybody, but a lot of the time I find myself trying to push back on what's trying to come in from concerns and fear and anguish, and like it's negative stuff flooding into the mind that feels like it's harming. But there's times when I feel like, there's also like the problem is that I'm not getting enough feeling loved and taken care of and supported. But there's times when I'm feeling like, actually, is the problem here that I am not loving the best stuff in the world? So how are those two interrelated? And how does that, what we love, affect what's out here? What is Swedenborg talking about? Without love, we die. Well, he says it. It's right here. It's in heaven and hell. You can download the book yourself, follow along. It's a free PDF on Swedenborg.com. The reason the divine in heaven, which in fact makes heaven, is love, is that love is spiritual union. While we're at it, can we just get a definition for that most mystical of things? What is love? I always make that same joke about that song. I ain't gonna do it this time. What is love? Baby, you don't know. Thanks for watching. That's the whole show. Love is spiritual union. So that's what's at the core when we're feeling, but we use that word in so many different ways. Like we can say, this person I love, and we're feeling love. Okay, is that some kind of spiritual union? Now, but what about if I'm loving building a house? Is it me uniting with the house? Or is there something else in there? It unites angels to the Lord and unites them with each other. I see two things there. So this, I could see angel to angel is here. But this house, if the Lord is the other player, could the Lord somehow be tied up in my love for building this house? Further, love is the essential reality of every individual life. Okay, so here I've drawn, let's have me draw great things and then let's critique those things. I mean, asked and answered. Let's do it. So here I seem to have thought of, there's love as an afterthought. Like here is the people and they're alive and then they go and they feel something like love for each other, or I feel some love in an activity, and that's where love shows up as sort of an addendum or a merit badge sticking onto the sash of life. But Swedenborg is saying love is the essential reality of every individual life. That is backwards. And that pushes up against the definition of what we think of when we think of love. Well, I think of love as sometimes I feel love. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just looking at my phone. But here he's saying, though, that you think of love as something that every once in a while drops in and shows up in consciousness. But he's saying, no, consciousness is a product of love. Love is therefore the source of the life of angels and the life of people here. Anyone who weighs the matter will discover that love is our vital core. So I guess the invitation there is, if you look inside, you can come to this conclusion. You should be able to come to this somehow, independently. This should be verifiable. We grow warm because of its presence and cold because of its absence. I think he's talking about emotionally, right? And when it's completely gone, we die. I told you. He thought I was being alarmist. He thought I was twisting Swedenborg's words. And I don't know exactly what he's talking about. We die when there's no love. Is this mean? And it seems here like he's talking more about the love that's inside of us, right? Rather than, are we receiving enough love? Like, are enough people coming in and showing us affection? I wonder, though. They did those studies about these poor kids who, or not studies, but just these reports on these poor kids who they were born in a war zone and hadn't really had any human contact, parental contact or otherwise. And they were functioning, 8 years behind where they should be. That not being touched and held is detrimental. Is that what he's talking about? Or are we doing love in the more philosophical sense of that everything we do is actually motivated by whatever desire is driving us? It seems to me like more he's talking about the second one, but both may be true. I mean, how are you going to separate the two? We do need to realize, though, that okay, here we go. The quality of our love that determines the quality of this life. So what we love determines the quality of our life. Oh, I thought what determined the quality of my life was how well are things going for me this week. I thought the quality of life was determined by, if I happen to get some kind of financial windfall and now I feel like, I can go to do this thing. What do people do with that? They go, I'm going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to go on this trip. Isn't that quality of life? Or is it the, I'll spare you all my insightful examples. Is the quality of the love that determines the quality of life? That is the key. What we love. So if we're looking at improving, how do you improve your life? What do I love? What is motivating me? What is driving everything that I do? There are two quite distinguishable loves in heaven. Love for the Lord and love for our neighbor. And this is a crucial passage, because Swedenborg will talk about love for the Lord and love for the neighbor all over the place. And as you're about to see, those are not what you think they are. And loading this into your head is really going to equip you to navigate the rest of the Swedenborg stuff, but also life. You're looking to, what makes heaven? We're looking to upgrade the quality of our life, and the best life you can have is this life that's called heaven, which is not about just being in a spiritual location. This is about a way of loving and a way of thinking. What makes it up? Love for the Lord. It's not happening yet. He talks about it in a second. Love for the Lord is characteristic of the third or central heaven, while love for our neighbor is characteristic of the second or intermediate heaven. Some people say, why is there, Swedenborg does seem to indicate that, actually he talks about three, he's not talking about the outermost one here, but there is, level 1 heaven, level 2 heaven, level 3 heaven. Why divide it up like that? Why is God interested in putting barriers in between people and seeming to assign credit or value to certain groups? Why isn't it all just one heaven? It's because it's not the Lord doing that arbitrarily. There are different kinds of love. Heaven is about your life. Heaven is a certain kind of life, and life is driven by what? By what you love. And if there are two very distinguishable kinds of love, it's the love that drives everything around it. So there's a certain kind of love that creates a way of being and a life that is what Swedenborg calls the intermediate heaven here, the second heaven, the spiritual heaven, whatever you want to call it, or whatever you want to hear Swedenborg call it. It's not just God is sticking you there. That is a certain kind of love that drives that. And the central heaven is a different kind of life. It's different lives. The only differentiation that happens is because we have different lives. And actually, they both need each other. Both come from the Lord, and each one makes a heaven. Each one makes a heaven. It's not like, you didn't make it into heaven. It makes a heaven. It's just a different kind. But look at that again, that the love is what's making the heaven. You'd think it'd be the other way around. Heaven changes what you love and who you are. What we love makes a heaven. In heaven's light, it is easy to see how these two loves differ and how they unite. But this can be seen only dimly in our world. So whatever we're about to explain, it's not going to be very good. In heaven, okay, and this is that definition. So mark this down in your Webster's dictionary of key life principles. There, that will inspire you. There's probably a picture in there, rule of thirds or something. That will inspire you to remember this. In heaven, loving the Lord does not mean loving him for the image he projects. And if you maybe have heard that before, still let's stop and pause on it for a second. But loving the good that comes from him. Loving the Lord doesn't have to do with how much affection do you feel for the character of God? Think, and because how would you build up love for the Lord? God must care about each one of us so much. God has done so many things for us. God is the source of... That's fine. Actually, that's fine. And it's a great, from what I've heard when people are experiencing it and the times when I feel like I do, it's a really nice emotion. And I think it's got to be a really important component to developing a closer relationship with God, which is really good. But it's not the core of loving God. It's loving the good that comes from God. Because rather than our conception of how God feels about things, or what God is like, or what God does, which is always going to be just a limited part of the puzzle, because you can't understand the infinity of God. You're always going to have a relatively childlike perception of who God actually is, no matter how wise you get, because there's always more of God to discover. But loving the good that comes out of God, because God is not sitting there interested in God's own self-image. He's sitting there saying, I want to do good. But God, what kind of life, if we're saying that love is life, what kind of life is God? God is the life of trying to do good to everyone ever. So loving that good, loving goodness to other people, that's loving the Lord. When you love that and you pursue it and you devote your life to it, that's loving the Lord. And doing that, when that becomes the primary motivator in life, rather than the primary motivator being advancing myself and trying to lay out a life that I enjoy, when you're thinking more about I want to do what's good and true, you can do either one. But we're just saying that loving the good that comes from the Lord makes heaven. It puts you in heaven. Further, loving one's neighbor does not mean loving companions for the image they project. Loving the neighbor doesn't mean loving other people for the image they project, but loving the truth that comes from the Word. Now we've crossed the page margin, so I won't try to highlight the beginning of it, but how is it going to be? Loving the truth that comes from the Word. That is loving the neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. So here we go from, love an idea of the person of God, and then to think about the way different people are, and love those people. No one's gonna argue against that. It's a good thing, but it's not the core. Because people, Swedenborg talks a lot about how you can't just latch on and say, and we're going to have to get into semantics and splitting hairs here. I was going to say, you can't just say, I'm going to love this person no matter what. Because what if that person starts to do terrible things? And you loving them and doing things to support them is enabling them to do those terrible things and enabling them so they're harming others, but they're also harming themselves through that. Now, the semantics are, technically you still would love them, like you'd care about their welfare, but the way you acted towards them has changed. And another way, because you would stop them from doing that behavior, even if you have to do it very forcefully. That's actually what love is in that situation. Another way to look at it is Swedenborg says the neighbor in everyone is what's good and true. So like the truth that people believe in, the good part of them, that's the part you want to be kind to, because there's a whole plethora of things you can encourage in people that are damaging to them. And this, again, we're on thin ice because it's very hard to know. And there's a whole, what it's like when somebody thinks that they know what you should and shouldn't be doing, and they charge in there and try to set things right. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very hard to do right. But okay, have we learned anything? I'm just saying. He says, loving the Lord is loving the good, and loving the neighbor is the truth that comes from the Word. Love that, because that is what is the most healthy thing for all the neighbors. Loving the truth. And what is loving the truth? Okay, is it again like that idea, that concept that God something, these different levels? Is that what I just love that? Is that what it is? Loving the truth is intending and doing it. Okay. I feel like I'm starting to see. So if before we say, we got these people and we don't know. These people might be acting great. They might be doing things that are good and helping themselves. They might be taking harmful actions that start to hurt themselves, right? How are you going to know? And how are you really going to get in there and know their motivations? And that's very hard to do. What you can do to love the neighbor is, you've got the truth in your mind. We'll do a book. Let's say a book is a good symbol for the truth. So if you have these things that you really believe are right, like this is how I firmly believe is the way in the most integrity, the most just, the most compassionate, the most bestest way to live. And this is how I would want people to act to me. Nobody's going to know if they have that right, but you got what your best compass is. And to say, I'm going to live a life in accordance with this. So as in, I will treat people as I would want to be treated. I will do things justly, honestly, fairly. I will be in integrity and all that. Acting in that way, in that life, which is aimed to benefit the Commonwealth, it should benefit those people, that is the essence. That is the greatest impact we have on loving the neighbor, because we are trying to live what benefits all. We can therefore see that these two loves differ, the way good and true differ, and unite the way these two unite. Wow, and I didn't really see that line before. That is critical, because again, you can get in here and be saying, what? First heaven, second heaven, third heaven. We're just talking about the second and third here. Well, is one worse or the other? Truth and goodness, no, neither is better than the other. And they have to have each other to do anything. So you have to have some people who make this love of the Lord their primary love, and you have to have some people who make love of the neighbor or love of the truth their primary love, because they need to unite the way goodness and truth unites in order to communicate with God, who is the union of goodness and truth up here. So this is good. It's good that people have different lives, because those complementary styles of life and the complementary styles of heaven that it makes, you got to have that. It's part of the divine plan. All this, though, will not conform to the notions of anyone who does not know what love is, what the good is, and what the neighbor is. It's twice that he's saying, look, this is a thing that's hard for us to express here. So if you got something out of that, you're very smart. I have talked with angels about this on a number of occasions. Wouldn't that be nice? You have a question about something philosophical, and you can just go, hey, angels, can we chew through this a bit and get me to understand it better? They have expressed their astonishment that church people, this would be the Christian church in Swedenborg's day, do not know that to love the Lord and love one's neighbor is to love what is good and true and do them intentionally. Do what's good. Do what the truth is pushing you. Do what love is pushing you to do. Do what the truth is pushing you to do. That's what loving the neighbor is. They should realize, though, that we demonstrate our love by intending and doing what someone else wants. Okay. Now here we go, because in my little thing here, where we're getting to the essence of what it is, it could seem like I'm sort of freezing these people out, right? I'm saying, well, it doesn't even matter about those people. It's about these principles. But is there actually a way that this can be applied in our interactions with each of these people? I don't know, but let's see, right? How can you not want to see how this whole thing turns out? Train wreck, I think they call it. They should realize, though, that we demonstrate our love by intending and doing what someone else wants. This is how we become loved in return, not by loving the other and not doing what the other wants. In essence, that is not loving at all. Now, we can go back and forth all day, and he definitely talks about, look, you can't just do charity or loving kindness to everyone, because people are doing harmful things in their lives. It isn't, I forgot to silence my phone. It isn't useful. But on the other hand here, this really is a clear call to get in there and truly benefit other people. That it's not just about staying in yourself and saying, well, I'm doing what I want to do. There is this call that you have to get in there and benefit other people. And that actually the angelic nature, these heavens that we're talking about, is to wish that everything that's yours would belong to someone else. What? I just work very hard to try to have the stuff that's mine belong to me. What are you talking about? I wouldn't say that he's advocating give up all your possessions, because there's a whole science about, well, a whole realm of discussion about how you have to secure your needs in order to be useful. But then there's this other side, which is this: angels would gladly give everything that's theirs to someone. So those two, let them meet in the middle with you and see what it means. They should realize that the good that comes from the Lord is the Lord's own likeness, because he's within it. So loving the Lord's good is loving the Lord. This is why. Why is it loving the good, loving the Lord? Isn't that just derivative, and you should actually go back and love the Lord? The Lord's own likeness, because God is inside the good. We become likenesses of him and are united to him when we make what is good and what is true matters of our lives by doing them intentionally, since intending something is loving to do it. The Lord teaches that this is true when he says, "Those who have my commandments and do them are the ones who love me, and I will love them and make my dwelling with them. And again, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love." So we're going back and forth here, right? We're talking about the nature of love, and we're talking about how without love we die. So I think love is a given. I don't think maybe he's talking about spiritual love. I mean physical life, that it can be that if people are their love is so stymied, somehow it can have physical effects. I bet that he's talking about spiritual life, because everybody that, as we all can live forever, we're always going to have some kind of love. But in hell, he calls it spiritual death, because it's not really love like we're describing here. It's love of everything that's evil. It's love of harming people, exploiting people, everything. We already know what evil is. That's what drives hell. This love of the goodness that is the love of what the Lord is trying to do for people, and in some way reaching out and benefiting others. Think about the way you work to benefit yourself, right? How could I take that same kind of care and love and look to benefit the human race in whatever way, whether it's through living in integrity and doing your job just, actually Swedenborg says doing your whatever it is you do for your occupation or your roles, your familial roles, something like that. That can be a huge part, if not the main, if not the primary part of what we do. But just thinking about, what is my love, and how do I take that love and see that likeness of the Lord in it? Because if you got that in there, you can say, all right, this is how you love the Lord, is to take this, intend it, love it, and do it. And that's the news from heaven. I feel like we're pulling things together there, but I have good confidence that something in there will pop into your mind and help you well. If it does, leave a comment. Let us know. If you want to support this program, go to otle.cosvox.com. Your donations right now will be matched. We got a generous gift from an anonymous couple who said, look, every time someone gives money to Off the Left Eye, we want to match that up to $10,000. So if you're willing, make a little contribution. That'll help this kind of very rare. I mean, there's not that much programming like this out there. Your support is the only reason it can exist. Thanks to everybody. Thanks for watching News from Heaven. I love doing them. Looking forward to seeing you at the next video that you pop in for.